Hi guys, welcome to the 10th edition of the Sack Race Weekly. Thank you very much for tuning in. Today our three topics are the next Premier League manager to leave market. We haven't seen anyone leave yet, but there soon could be a departure on the horizon. They're looking to the Championship and see how the three relegated teams are faring this season. Then we answer your viewers' questions in section 3. Guys, please do like the video, give us a subscribe and check out our brand new quiz on thesackrace.com. Can you name the 35 managers to oversee at least 200 Premier League matches? Right guys, section 1. Will there be a Premier League departure before Christmas? We've already seen 12 in the EFL this season, but none in the Premier League. At this stage of December last season, we'd already seen 5. We've seen Pochettino go, Emery go, Silva go, but no one has left yet. Simon, I'm going to put you on the spot from the off. How many Premier League managers have left their posts in the month of December in the previous 28 seasons?
I don't think December's that much of a time for sacking, but then there's a lot of games. It's a really hard question. So 28 seasons, you think there's usually at least one a year, maybe? 28? I'll say 29.
I just honestly don't believe this. You've actually got one right. This is not a setup. I genuinely haven't told him the answer for. 29. We only saw 3 in the first 12 years. They weren't very
Don't tell me to name them.
Yeah, there'll suddenly be an avalanche now. We only saw 3 in the first 12 seasons, 26 in the following 16, and we've seen 10 in the last 5 alone. So there's been loads. But so we're going to run through the odds at the moment. We've got Chris Wilder as a 9-4 favourite, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer 11-4, Slaven Bilic is there at 4-1, Scott Parker 6-1, Mikel Arteta 6-1 too, and then Steve Bruce, our boy Bruce, at 10-1. Now there's been a bit of a move in the last week where Wilder's the favourite. Then Mikel Arteta was slashed from 50-1 to 3-1. Then Ole Gunnar Solskjaer came in at 3-1. They've both drifted a little bit now. But if we can, we both love Wilder. We've previously spoken about how he's still the right man for the job. He's not going to leave and they're definitely not going to sack him. So we think the value probably is elsewhere. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, backed by Ed Woodward recently in a fans forum, then came in as the favourite for the sack this week. Their season's been so topsy-turvy. They produced some brilliant comebacks, been electric on the counter-attack, but they're out of the Champions League. But they're still in contention, bizarrely, to win the Premier League. If they beat Manchester City this weekend, they're only a couple of points off the summit. But how important is the Manchester derby for Solskjaer?
Again, it is important for him, but this seems to be the game that he loves. You know, he always seems to beat Pep Guardiola. He seems to have got his number. He seems to be able to play this counter-attacking style of football against Man City, who like to hold possession. We know that. So it is important. I don't think they'll sack him anytime soon. I think he'll be given a bit more time, at least a couple of months. I think it'll be into the new year, to be honest, that we see any Premier League sacking. So I think we might have to wait a bit longer for a Premier League manager to leave. But I think Solskjaer, we've seen them be patient. We've seen them give him a bit of money to spend. We have seen some good results from Solskjaer. Let's not forget some good performances in Europe, excluding the last couple of games we've seen. Some decent performances in the Premier League, as you say. They keep coming back from behind, away from home. They're scoring a lot of goals. Their attack's looking pretty good. It's just their defence that needs sorting out. So in the Premier League, he's doing pretty well. And I think the Manchester derby, I think he'll be happy with a draw, to be honest. But Man United in recent years have been winning a lot of these games.
Will Solskjaer still be at the helm come the end of the season, though?
Oh, that is a tough one. I think he will. I have been a Solskjaer critic. I don't think he's the best manager. I don't think he's the right manager for Manchester United, but they're performing well in the Premier League, which is the thing that's most important to them, more important than the Champions League, more important than anything else. So if they keep performing well in the Premier League, if they are on track to finish in the top 4, I think they're performing fairly well there. So if he finishes in the top 4, it's a pretty successful season for Manchester United. It's a pretty successful season for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. So yes, I'm going to say he will still be there, and Man United will have a reasonably good season in the Premier League.
On to Mikel Arteta, who was 50-1. He came in at around 3-1, is now hovering around the 6-1 mark. He won 2 trophies in the summer. Everything seemed to be on track. They were progressing. And now the goals have dried up. They can't win. They're just above the relegation zone. But is criticism unfair, do you think? Or do you think fans have got every right to showcase their frustration at how things are going at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, I think fans are well within their rights to be frustrated. Arteta does play good football, but it's football that's not getting results at the minute. I think to be fair to Manchester United fans, I think if Manchester United and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer were in the position in the Premier League that Arsenal and Arteta find themselves in, I think are they 14th or 15th or something? It's an absolute disgrace for Arsenal to be that low in the league. So I think if it was Manchester United and it was the other way around, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer would be getting absolutely hammered in the press. And I think Mikel Arteta is under pressure. He's got this fashionable manager vibe around him. We spoke highly of him under Pep Guardiola. We expected big things of him. We've got to remember this is his first full-time, first team managerial job. So he is inexperienced still. He's learning as he goes. He's experienced a lot of pressure and defeats at the minute. I think he can turn it around. I think he'll be given time to turn it around. But I have to say, if Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was in the position that Arteta finds himself in, it'll be a whole different story. He's received a lot of credit in the bank, hasn't he? He's received a bit of a positive view from the press, from people like us who've spoken positively of Arteta. I think perhaps we've got to start being a bit more critical, a bit more negative perhaps on Mikel Arteta and Arsenal, because it's not been good at all at the moment.
Given the carnage there, we like to think he will stay on and things will improve, but his position is only heightened by the fact that Max Allegri is giving loads of interviews saying he wants to be in the Premier League, saying he wants to manage there. So we have to see if anything happens with that one. But for the moment, Arteta is safe. And Simon, will there be a departure before Christmas in the Premier League? Yes or no?
No, I can't see it happening. As we've spoken about Wilder, I don't think he's going anywhere, and I think he deserves to have that Sheffield United job for as long as he wants to have it. I think Man United will stick by Solskjaer. I think Arsenal and Arteta need to be given more time. The other names for me aren't really contenders at the moment. Steve Bruce is doing reasonably well at Newcastle. That won't change anytime soon, I don't think. So yeah, I think it's going to be a happy Christmas for all Premier League managers.
Section 2, we now delve into the Championship to assess the 3 relegated teams from last season. We've got Norwich City, who kept the faith in Daniel Farke. We then got Bournemouth, who hired from within in Jason Tindall. And then Watford, who love changing managers, got another new manager in, Vladimir Ivic. Norwich are top. I know you have a soft spot for Norwich, Simon, but right decision to keep Farke, obviously, so far.
Yeah, I think we've spoken again about Daniel Farke. I think the job he did last year in the Premier League, it was hands tied a bit. They didn't invest enough. I think a lot of people were fairly critical of him with the way they tried to play. He didn't change anything. He didn't really, have a plan B at all. But if you look at what they did this summer, they lost Ben Godfrey, they lost Jamal Lewis, but they managed to keep players who definitely shouldn't be in the Championship, maybe shouldn't even be at the bottom half of the Premier League. Players like Max Aarons, he was meant to go to Barcelona this summer. Somehow he's still playing in the Championship and got his head screwed on right. Emi Buendia, absolutely fantastic player, one of the best in the Championship. And of course, Pukki seems to be back finding his goal-scoring feet once again, as he was at the start of last season. They're playing really nice stuff at the moment. They've had an awful lot of injuries at the start of this season, but those players are coming back fit, and despite those injuries, they find themselves top of the pile. I've been really impressed. We both thought it might be difficult for Farke to kind of turn around this losing mentality. It was so many games in a row they lost at the back end of last season under lockdown, and almost instantly he's turned things around and got them back to the top of the Championship. And Norwich, we know they're a yo-yo club, but I think Farke, he's got them in a good place, and he will be the man, if anyone is the man, to get them back to the Premier League and keep them there.
So Bournemouth lost Eddie Howe at the end of last season, and we expected maybe a glamour name to come in, but they appointed from within his long-time assistant, Jason Tindall. It's been a transition period for the club because they lost so many star players to other Premier League clubs, but he's done fantastically well. They're second in the league, they're scoring goals, they're hard to beat. But were you surprised by this appointment back in the summer?
I was surprised, but then again, we saw quite a few internal appointments from Football League clubs. Obviously, Bournemouth got a bit of money behind them, but I think there's something in Tindall that clearly the board have seen. Clearly, he's been highly recommended by Eddie Howe, and he's been talking about how he was the nice guy as the assistant manager. It's kind of good cop, bad cop. The manager is the bad cop usually, and then the assistant smooths things over. But he's been talking recently in the press about how he's had to step up and become that bad guy and get the respect of the players and be this tough talking manager. And it seems to have worked. I've been really impressed with Bournemouth. I thought out of the 3 relegated teams, they probably had the weakest squad heading into this season. But having said that, it's still a squad packed full of quality, like the Dom Solanke, Cook as well. You know, there's players that played in the Championship before and really know what they're doing. Asmir Begovic in goal, he was at Chelsea just a few years ago. You know, there's some really good players in this squad, and Tyndall seems to have just got them working. I think they're playing mostly in a 3-4-3 at the moment, and it seems to be going really well for them at the minute. I'm sure Bournemouth fans are delighted with this start because not many people saw it coming.
For anyone who hasn't seen Bournemouth this season, is Tyndall a carbon copy of Eddie Howe? Has he followed in his footsteps, or has he got his own style, own personality, and stamped his own style of play on the club?
I think, if anything, it's hard to judge, obviously, between the Premier League and the Championship, but it seems a bit more attacking. They're certainly quicker getting it forward. I don't mean direct. I mean along the floor, vertical passes straight to the forwards. The 3-4-3, Eddie Howe rarely implemented that formation. I think perhaps towards the end of the time he did a bit. But the 3-4-3 they seem to be working with now just means they've got a lot of bodies in the box when they move forward. They've got a lot of pressure, and the press is really intense from Bournemouth this season. A lot of teams haven't been able to deal with it. And again, they seem reasonably solid at the back with that keeper and the back three. So in terms of changes to Eddie Howe, it's not too different, but it just seems a bit more intense and a bit more positive, to be honest, than we saw at the end of the Premier League reign with Eddie Howe. I'm not sure it would have quite worked in the Premier League the same way it's worked in the Championship. We've got to take that into consideration, but it's been an absolutely flying start for Tyndall.
And then Watford, they went for the external appointment in Vladimir Ivic. It's been a little bit stodgy, bit defensive at times, but they're up in third. They're only 4 points off the top of the league. Do you think fans, they crave naturally more excitement, or do you think they'd be happy to just go up via any style of football?
Yeah, I think promotion is probably the main and only target for Watford this season. I have to say, in terms of Watford and Ivic this season, compared to the other two teams, I expected more. I'm certainly less positive about Ivic than the other two. I mean, he's got the best squad, I think, in the Championship. The squad probably on the highest wages. I mean, the likes of Sarr, Deeney, this is a Premier League squad. Chalobah, Ben Foster in goal. It's absolutely brilliant, this squad. I don't think he's got them playing good enough football. I don't think he's got them playing attacking enough. He could maybe learn a thing or two from Tyndall here. Get them on the front foot, start scoring more goals. I think their last game was a 1-0 home defeat to Cardiff, and Cardiff just absolutely bullied them. And that's the sort of game they need to be winning if they're to get promoted this season. And Ivic, I've still got my question marks over him. Kind of like how Scott Parker had the best squad in the Championship with Fulham last season and they didn't finish in the top two. I think Ivic is in the same position as Parker was last season, where he can only match expectations. So third place is a reasonable start. I'm sure he'll be happy with it. But I think the tide could turn quite quickly if Watford lose a few games in a row, because the football isn't pretty at the moment.
So 3 clubs have never been relegated from the Premier League, then instantly won promotion back up to the top flight. It's happened. 2 clubs have been relegated and gone back up on 3 occasions. So we'll have to see how this one plays out. On to section 3, viewers' questions. Thanks to everyone who submitted a question. We're going to start off with Steve McQuillan. If Solskjaer does get sacked by Man United, do you think another club would pick him up? Of course, we've just spoken about Solskjaer in section 1. Do I think another club would pick him up? I think yes. I think Mole's an inevitable one, which we always talk about. Derby, if it happened now, Derby looking for a new manager. But no, I don't see that one happening. Last time he was in the Championship, he didn't do very well, of course, with Cardiff. He got the sack pretty early on in their season after they got relegated from the Premier League. But I think he could potentially go to a Premier League club. Simon, do you think a top flight return could be possible? Maybe over to Europe or the MLS instead?
I think a top flight club might have a go on him, you know. I don't think it'll be a top 6 club. I'm not sure he'd get a Champions League job again. It's really tough to call, but yeah, I think he would get another Premier League job. MLS is a good shout, you know. I think he's definitely raised his managerial stock at Manchester United. There's no question about that. And I think if he gets a bit more time in a job, he's going to establish himself as a top flight manager, and his CV will improve even further. If he can get a top 4 finish rather with Man United this season, then he'd certainly walk into another Premier League job quite easily.
There you go, some Solskjaer positivity from Simon. Van der Graaf, it's early days obviously, but in years to come, could Steven Gerrard be a good England manager? I mean, he's flying, isn't he, with Rangers? He had a couple of maybe not hard seasons, but he came in for a little bit of criticism because he wasn't getting any trophies, but they're absolutely brilliant this season. I think they're about 25 games and beaten. They're miles clear of Celtic. Could he win the Europa League and Scottish Premier League double, Simon?
That would be quite a stretch, quite an achievement. I think they need to focus on winning that title back from Celtic first and foremost. In terms of the original question, I think there's a lot of promising England players from that golden generation. Frank Lampard, Steven Gerrard, probably not Paul Scholes actually, Jack. Frank Lampard, Steven Gerrard, maybe John Terry as well if he gets a job. There's a lot of good England managers. Wayne Rooney, but maybe ready and waiting if he gets that Derby job. But it's quite an exciting time to see these English managers. I think Gerrard and Lampard are at the front of that pack for sure. There's a lot of good managers ready and waiting. I don't think it'll be for a while for sure. I think we're looking about 10 years time, 5-10 years time for Gerrard to get the England job. I think we've got to go through a few more years of Southgate, a bit of progression. Then I want to see Eddie Howe get the job, and then maybe we can look at Steven Gerrard. But if he keeps going like this, if he wins Rangers a title, or does well in Europe, then potentially moves on, no disrespect to Rangers, and gets a Premier League job, does reasonably well there, I think we could see him as a future England manager.
Pete Marsden.
It's Pete's Tweet of the Week.
When Pep eventually leaves, who's the best man to take over at City? Of course, Pep is going to be at City for the long haul now, even more of a long haul now, we think. He's just signed a new contract. Nagelsmann's always linked. That's an inevitable link. I personally like Brendan Rodgers. I really do think he'd be a great fit at City. He's doing so well at Leicester, and that would just be the natural step up, and hopefully he can win that elusive title he's been craving for so long. Nuno Santos in the mix as well. Erik ten Hag, the Ajax manager, and Neil Warnock is a 500 to 1 shot, although I don't think that one will happen. Simon, who's your pick for Pep's replacement eventually?
I'm going to go for Thomas Tuchel. I think he's a brilliant manager. He's been an absolutely brilliant manager in Europe over the past few years. Now, obviously at PSG doing really, really well. He's taken PSG from this club who used to just win the French First Division into this European giant. Champions League finalist last season, looked to be going pretty well in Europe this season. I think he's a really good fit. He's managed these big names, these big players, these big egos on big wages before. That's what Manchester City are kind of full of now. And I think as this young manager, I think he's really exciting. Probably got a bit more experience than the likes of Nagelsmann. And I think Thomas Tuchel will make a really good Manchester City manager.
Seb Parkinson, the Ollie in, Ollie out brigade are in full flow. Which 3 managers would be the perfect fit to replace Solskjaer if he is sacked? Can you profile each of them and justify your selection? I don't think we've got too much time to go in depth on this one, but 3 managers, as a Saints fan, it kills me to say Ralph Hasenhüttl, what a brilliant job he's doing on the South Coast. What a brilliant coach he is, squeezing every ounce of potential out of his players. Imagine what he could do with the likes of Bruno, Rashford, Martial. Allegri, I think if they want a serial winner, and then that man Nagelsmann, who Ollie did thump 5-0, but of course then lost 3-2 and got dumped out of the Champions League. Simon, who are your 3 picks?
I'm not going to give 3 picks because I don't think we've got time. I'm going to give 1 pick who I think is made for this Manchester United job, who has been made for this Manchester United job for a few years now. It's the obvious one, Mauricio Pochettino. I think he's got to be the man to take over. I felt when Mourinho, before he went to Manchester United, he was flirting with the job for a bit. I felt he was made to be Manchester United manager. Then he got the job a few years later. I think Pochettino is the man for Man United. And I know he hasn't won any trophies, but Old Trafford could be the place to do it. We know he's a top level elite manager. He's the man for Manchester United once Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has eventually been sacked.
And finally, to finish up on Michael Bates, how soon is too soon to build a statue for your manager?
For my manager? For Mark Robins?
Yeah, go for Mark Robins at Coventry. Is there not one already? You need a ground first.
Yeah, right. Mark Robins at Coventry, he will get a statue, I'm sure of it. If he's with us for 10 years, if he gets us to the Premier League, he'll get a statue. It won't be too long. For Hasenhüttl, I don't know. Saints, Jack? How often do they build statues?
As long as it's not like that Ted Bates one they originally built outside St Mary's, I think it'll be good. As for a statue, when's too soon? I think just do it whenever. There's your answer. Cheers, guys.